to this session. We would be solving the CBSE NET paper for Psychology, December 2015. Now, the paper for December was, I could say, much more conceptual as compared to the June paper. Most of the questions that were based on psychometrics and the statistical techniques applied a lot of understanding and conceptual knowledge. There were very few rote questions that were asked in this year paper as in contrast to what was asked in June 2015. So we'll start with the very first question, the concept of motion sickness. Now motion sickness is also known as travel sickness, car sickness or moving sickness sometimes we say. And this occurs mainly due to the imbalance or the conflict between our visual system, what we perceive, and the vestibular system or our system of balancing. So when there is a conflict between the two states, then the state of motion sickness arises. So the only correct answer is 3, that's D only. Motion sickness can lead to nausea, dizziness, fatigue and characteristics like that. The next is, you have an assertion reason question. The assertion says iconic store is a discrete visual sensory store. That's correct. Iconic memory is a kind of very brief memory, and this is because in this state the information is stored as in the visual sensory store, and it's usually the visual codes or visual images in which the information is stored. So the reason explains the assertion, and we have both reason and assertion are true, and assertion is the correct explanation for this reason. Reason is the correct explanation for this assertion. Next question. Now what happens under the normal process of conditioning? Under the normal process of conditioning, as we have studied in the Pavlov's experiment, you ring the bell and then you provide the food. But under backward conditioning, it happens reverse. You first provide the food and then you ring the bell. That means what is happening here is you are having a conditioned stimulus that follows an unconditioned stimulus. So unconditioned stimulus here is the food and the conditioned stimulus is the bell that rings. So what happens is you first have an unconditioned stimulus and then you have a conditioned stimulus that follows. So you have the unconditioned stimulus that is presented at the first, and conditioned stimulus is presented after the termination of the unconditioned stimuli. So you have the food that you present, and after that the bell rings on. Next, which of the following defines a problem space? Now there are 4 elements of problem space that are given. First is the initial space or the initial stage. The next is the goal state, what you want to achieve. The next is the next set of operations or operators, I could say, which you will involve to reach to the solution for the problem. So you have the set of operators that are involved, and finally you have the path constraints. That means whatever difficulties you have in your way to achieve your goal. So those are the path constraints. So these 4 will systematically define the problem space. So we can say all 3 of them are correct here. Next question. James Lange theory and the cognitive theory of emotion disagree on. Now let's first understand the James Lange theory. James Lange theory explains that you enter into a forest, you see a lion. Seeing a lion, what happens is your heartbeat increases, and finally you feel trembling, and because of that you are afraid. So that is what something James Lange explained in his model. So he said there is biological feedback which determines the emotion. In contrast to that, you have cognitive theories. There were 2 cognitive theories. One was given by Schweitzer and Singer, and next was given by Lazarus. So he said you have a stimulus or a stimuli that leads to arousal, and finally this arousal leads to emotion. In contrast to that, Lazarus said you have a stimuli and that stimuli leads to arousal and emotion. So he said it occurs in a systematic order, and according to Lazarus, it occurs together. So a stimuli will lead to both arousal and emotion as per Lazarus theory. So what was important under the cognitive theory of emotion was the aspect of cognition and not the bodily feedback. So bodily feedback determines the emotion. That would be the main point where both the theories disagree. Next question. You have to match list 1 with list 2. So you have some of the elements that are given in list 1 and you have the characteristics that are given in list 2. Now even if you are not aware of the concepts, you can just apply simple logic like Broca. So in the brain you have two areas, Broca area and the Wernicke area, that we have already covered in the lecture on brain. So Broca area talks about the correlation between the size of brain and the intelligence. However, Broca's research led to I could say it was unreliable and it was least correlated result that he could get. But he did his research on the brain size and the level of intelligence. The next is Binet. Binet talked about the collection of mental abilities. Then you have Wechsler. Wechsler talked about the performance IQ is based on various parameters, and he tried to eliminate the cultural biasness. So he said there should not be any cultural biasness to get a performance based result. And finally, Galton said intelligent people often have intelligent relatives, and based on this he tried to explain that the concept of intelligence is inherited or is I could say it passes on from generation to generation. So that was what Galton believed. So you have the correct matches here. So it's 4, 3, 2, 1 would be the correct answer. That's 4. Next question. Biologically based emotions and behavioral tendencies that are evident in early childhood represent. Now this is exactly what is the definition of temperament. So temperament by definition states biologically based emotions and behavioral tendencies that are evident in early childhood. So the correct answer would be 3. So this is one of the direct questions we have here. The next is, in Jung's theory, the idea of automatically redistributing the psyche in order to achieve equilibrium or balance is what is known as principle of entropy. So under principle of entropy, what he tried to explain was a person might be angry with his partner, but at the same time can be very polite or very soft hearted towards his cousins or relatives. So that is how you kind of automatically redistribute your psyche to achieve an equilibrium. That was the principle of entropy. Now let's have a brief look on other principles. So you have the principle of opposition that says you have always a balancing force. So if there is an extrovert personality, there would be an introvert personality. Then you have principle of equivalence that says if you are doing something, you will try to devote time into one thing such that you are able to equally I could say deal with the opposite act of it. So you try to maintain a balance between it. The next is now this is a question which was taken from, I could say, the recent happenings around the world. So application of psychology to the field of terrorism. So most of the questions here which were kind of applied were dealing with the recent happenings. As you will see, more questions in paper 3 similar to this. So you have this question talks about the recent terrorist attacks that happened in France or Paris, and a psychologist proposed a study where they would interview 200 French students and find their attitude towards fate as a consequence of the attack. Now, when is this study done? Reading this passage, we can say this study has been done after the Paris attacks were over. So since this study is done after the fact, we call it ex post facto study. Now most of the students got confused here with an experimental change, attitude change experiment choice, but this won't be the correct option. The reason being, here they are not not talking about the change in the attitude, but they are just finding out one's attitude towards the fate as a result of the attacks that have taken place. So it's not talking about the changes that have taken place in the attitude. So the correct answer here would be ex post factor study. Next question. You have the cutaneous or the skin receptors and to what they would respond to. So you have the free nerve endings that are sensitive to temperature and pain. So this would be the correct choice. Then you have roughness ending. Those are responsible for stretch. So skin is stretching. Now roughness are found in the deep layers of the skin. So they are found deeper. In contrast to that, Merkels are found on the superficial layer of the skin and they are very slow adopting. As a result, they talk about gradual skin indentations. And finally, you have panic corpuscles. Those talk about quick or sudden responses and sudden displacements in the skin. So these would be the correct option. So you have 4, 3, 2, 1 as the correct order. Next. Now the question says, a tree shall appear same when perceived from far or near. The size of the retinal image remains invariant. Now the perceived object, if it was the size of the perceived object, I would say it would remain invariant, but on the retina, the image formation would definitely be different for an image that is closer and an image that is far. So an object that is closer to me and an object that is far away from me, in both the cases, the retinal image that would be formed would be different. We'll see how. So here you have assertion is correct and reason is incorrect. So you have 3 as the correct answer. Now let's see how. You have 2 trees, one is far, one is near. So you have the far tree that is forming the retinal image, that is this. Then you have the tree which is near, and this tree, as you can see, is forming another retinal image, and this would be the retinal image. So whether the object is far or near would definitely change the retinal image, but if I talk about the size of the perceived object, for me it might remain invariant, but the retinal image would definitely be different in both the cases. Next question. Which of the following is correct while comparing classical and operant conditioning? Now operant conditioning I can say is voluntary. When I say it's voluntary, it's trying to exhibit kind of various responses which can be reinforcement or punishment. Reinforcement will increase the probability of the behavior. On the other hand, punishment would decrease the probability of that behavior in future. So these are the 2 things that we talk about in operant conditioning. While we talk about classical conditioning, we try to associate parameters, and when we talk about this, we usually do not have choices. So 2 would be the correct answer here. Words recalled underwater are recalled best when you are underwater. Okay, so underwater, then on land. Now how? So in the topic on memory, we will talk about the context dependent memory. And that is how we understand what is context dependent memory. Context dependent memory means if I have read a novel when I was lying on a sofa, I would recall it best when I am again on the sofa. That means if you are under similar situation again, you will recall that event faster than any other condition. So that is what means by context dependent memory, and this question is asked or is based on the logic of context dependent memory. Next question. People overlook flaws if the overall issue is perceived as important. So if I feel the overall issue is important, I tend to overlook small mistakes or flaws that it have. And people have some biasness. So this is by definition the meaning of oversight biasness. So that is how we defined oversight biasness. So oversight biasness, under that people have a tendency to overlook flaws if they believe that the overall issue is important to them. So you have both of the choices as correct and reason as the correct explanation for this. Next, Simi is totally blind, still she follows 24 hours day and night cycle like rest of us, and she seems to be very comfortable with this. What does she rely on? So our 24 hours biological cycle or biological clock, we also call it biological rhythm, is governed by the day and night behavior and the similar behaviors we have. So this occurs due to the presence of suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus area of the brain. And that relies again on our social activity. So if you say you are flying from say India to United States of America or North or South America, I could say, what would happen is there would be the change in the day and night, and because of that there would be disruption of the biological clock. So here you have A, C and D as the correct option. So you have 4 would be the correct choice. Next question, Flynn effect. Flynn effect is an effect in intelligence which believes that over the years and over the generations IQ score has gone up. So as if I start with 1990s and I move on to 2000, if I draw a curve, I have 1930s here and 2000 or 2010 here, I would say there is a drastic increase in the level of intelligence. So IQ score is getting higher as compared to the previous generation. So IQ score of the generation in comparison is higher in comparison to the preceding generation would be the correct option, because as you can see in the graph, over the decades you have increase in the score of IQ. Now this is the direct question on Freud's psychosexual development theory. So you have the stages in the order of oral, anal, phallic, latency and genital. So this is a kind of direct question. Now next, this is a very tricky question, I could say. Now there are two things you need to be clear about. First is the non-parametric test and one-way ANOVA test. So all these 4 that are given are non-parametric first of all. The next thing to understand here is which of those follows one-way ANOVA. So Krushal-Wallace test follows one-way ANOVA. You have Friedman's ANOVA that is based on repeated ANOVA. Then you have Mann-Whitney test which says 2 samples come from 2 sample populations. It's again a non-parametric test. And Kolmogorov's-Simronov's test that believes you have equality of continuous distribution. So this is the difference between the 4 tests. So here the correct answer would be 1. Next question. Action potentials normally travel axons in one direction. The portion of the axons over which action potential has just traveled are momentarily left refractory. So since they are left refractory, axon potential cannot travel in reverse direction. As a result, it travels only in one direction. So this reason is explaining the assertion. So both of them are true and 1 would be the correct answer here. Next question. Now here there is some mistake with the question that is given, because aerial perspective and atmospheric perspectives are one and the same thing. So I can say it can be either aerial or atmospheric perspective, and based on the choices here it should be relative height. Now if I try to understand the concepts, retinal image are formed or retinal cues. What happens under retinal cues is both of our eyes observe object from a slightly different position. So position from which my left eye is observing and right eye observes is different. So that is what is retinal cue. So that correctly matches here. Then you have atmospheric perspective or aerial perspective, which says the farther the object, it appears to be more hazy as compared to the objects that are close by. So you have 4 as the correct match here. Then you have linear perspective, which says the parallel lines tend to converge at certain distance. So if you have set of parallel lines, they will tend to converge at certain distance. So that is what is linear perspective. And relative height explains the object at the horizon are considered to be the farthest, and objects that are below or closer than the horizon would appear to be near. As you can see in this picture, you have 2 dogs. So the dog that is towards the horizon appears to be farther as compared to the dog which is closer would appear to be nearer. So that is how we explain the concept of relative height. The next is the Fermat's rule. Now this is a very tricky question, because there is an emphasis just on a single word which would change the meaning of the question. So a desirable behavior of an individual can be effectively used as a reference for another less desirable behavior. This is what it is saying, and it says Premack has suggested all responses should be thought of as potential reinforcers. That is correct. So this is something which is trying to explain Premack's principle. So when I am trying to explain Premack's principle, Premack said that a more desirable behavior will reinforce a less desirable behavior. It will not be used as a reference, rather it will reinforce. So if there is the word reinforce here or reinforcer here, then the assertion would be correct. But since here it says as a reference, this would be incorrect, because it's not a reference. A more desirable behavior is reinforcing or is strengthening a less desirable behavior. So here A would be false and reason would be correct. So you have 4 would be the correct choice here. Next question. The memory, which memory is a result of instrumental or motor learning skills? Now procedural memory, which is learnt in a systematized form or a set order, like walking, riding, or riding a car or a bicycle, is what explains the procedural memory, and it is a result of instrumental or motor learning, I could say. So you have 4 as the correct choice. We would be discussing all the types of memories under the lecture on memory. Then next, you have to understand what is convergent thinking and what is divergent thinking. Convergent thinking means if I have a problem and I come up with multiple solutions. So these are all the solutions that I have. This is what is convergent. This is what is divergent, and when I convergent, and when I say I am trying to come up with a correct solution by using thinking. So I have one solution that I have to land with from various elements. So what I am trying to use is divergent thinking. I am trying to use as many possible ideas to lead to this solution. So that is how I am using the thinking or the thought process as divergent. So the answer would be convergent and divergent. That's 3. Next. Which is the correct formula for body mass index? So when we talk about body mass index, it's the weight of the person divided by the squared height in meter, and the unit that we use is kg meter per square. So from the unit itself, you can say it's weight divided by square of height. So that is how we calculate the BMI. The next is, which of the following are not identified by Thurston? It's important to read the word not. There should not be any silly mistakes, because this question is specifically very confusing because of it. So now Thurston gave his primary mental abilities. That was the first thing. Under primary mental abilities, he talked about spatial and perceptual concepts. Then he gave 3 reasons. The first was induction. Then you have restricted reasoning. And finally you had deduction factor. So under induction factor, you talked about number series, he talked about the various tabular concepts, the analogies. Under deductive factor, he talked about the mechanical movements and the figure diagram correlations kind of things. So these were the three factors that he explained. So he talked about induction and he talked about spatial aspects, but he did not include semantic or symbolic concept in his theories. So C and D were not identified by Thurston. So you have 2 as the correct answer here. So with this we cover the first section of 25 questions for paper 2. We would be covering the next 25 questions in a further lecture. You can subscribe to Exam Race channel for any further updates. Have a good day.